Palestine weekly wrap, no respite for as Israel kills dozens in Gaza. As international isolation deepens over reports of sexual abuse and the widening seizure of Gaza, Israel presses on with strikes, demolitions and settler attacks through the Muslim holiday. Even Eid al-Adha, one of the two major holidays of Islam, which took place last week, has not been able to stem a relentless tide of Israeli attacks, demolitions and incursions across occupied Palestine. At least 33 Palestinians were killed and more than 130 wounded over the 4 days of Eid, from May 27 to May 30, according to the Gaza Ministry of Health, despite a ceasefire covering the enclave. Among the dead was Ahmad Ali Helles, 37, who was reportedly the sole surviving member of his immediate family and was killed in a drone strike on Shawa Square in Gaza City. Dr. Jamal Abu Aoun, head of anesthesia at Yafa Hospital, was also killed by Israeli forces near Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir el-Balah. In Kirbet Masoud, near Jenin in the occupied West Bank, a settler torched a Palestinian home and car. Mazel Tov, Hebrew for congratulations, was spray-painted across the walls in apparent mockery of Eid holidays. Israeli soldiers also fired tear gas at families visiting relatives' graves in Jenin, a common custom during Eid al-Adha, while Israeli security forces pulled the headscarf off a woman visiting Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque. Mounting isolation, deepening defiance, several Israeli entities were added on May 28 to the annual blacklist of parties maintained by United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, following credible suspicions of patterns of rape and conflict-related sexual violence. The same list also includes the Palestinian armed group Hamas. Guterres's accompanying report, covering 2025, documented UN-verified cases affecting 14 men, 7 women, 9 boys and 1 girl from Gaza and the West Bank. These cases were attributed to the Israeli military, the Israel Prison Service and special police units. Advertisement: the notorious SD Taman military camp and several facilities used to detain Palestinians have also been cited as sites of abuse. Israel responded by cutting ties with Guterres. The report coincides with growing international outrage over the global Summit flotilla scandal, in which Israeli forces violently detained activists traveling on board ships attempting to provide Palestinians in besieged Gaza with essential humanitarian aid. France this week asked prosecutors to open a criminal investigation into the treatment of its citizens detained from the flotilla. The European Union sanctioned 4 additional entities and 3 individuals who it described as extremist settlers. Those sanctioned included Nacharler and its director Daniela Weiss, as well as Regavim, another settler movement co-founded by Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich. Nonetheless, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu signaled an intent to entrench Israel's hold over Gaza, in a direct contravention of the October ceasefire. On May 28, he publicly directed the army to expand its control of the Gaza Strip from approximately 60% to 70% in footage aired by Israel's Channel 12. When an audience member shouted that Israel should take the whole of Gaza, he replied, "We are going in order. First 70%. Netanyahu's declaration was just a semi-formal acknowledgement of creeping Israeli expansionism in Gaza. In mid-March, the Israeli army quietly sent maps to aid organizations showing it had pushed roughly 11% beyond the yellow line of demarcation agreed under the October ceasefire. This brought 64% of Gaza, rather than the 53% stipulated in the October agreement, under direct Israeli control. In response, Germany's foreign ministry expressed opposition to any permanent division of the enclave, according to the Times of Israel, while Hamas called the order a dangerous escalation, according to AFP. 2 Likud party ministers in Netanyahu's cabinet, May Galan and Amichai Chikli, separately called for Israeli settlements to be rebuilt inside Gaza, according to the Times of Israel. Despite nominal ceasefire and Eid Shahid in Gaza, Israel has intensified an assassination campaign against the Hamas leadership amid growing fears of a return to full-blown war. On May 26, Israel killed Mohammed Odeh, the newly appointed head of Hamas's armed wing, along with his wife and children in a strike on Gaza City. This came just 11 days after the killing of his predecessor, Is al-Din al-Haddad. Advertisement: Israeli military radio has framed the assassinations as preparation for the resumption of fighting. At the same time, footage released this week showed an anti-Hamas militia in Gaza operating military drones. Some believe these drones could have been provided by Israel. If this is true, it would mark an escalation in the direct armed support that Israel provides to such groups. Hours after Odeh's funeral on 27 March, an Israeli air raid on a residential building in Gaza City killed at least 10 people, including 4 children. A day earlier, a drone strike on a gathering in eastern Meharzi killed 5, reportedly targeting a group of Palestinians planning to confront one of the Israeli-backed militias. On May 31, an Israeli helicopter struck a crowded cafe near Gaza City's Fisherman's Port, where people had gathered to escape the heat. The attack killed at least 2 Palestinians and wounded around 18. On the same day, a drone strike on the Abu Deir family home in Bureij refugee camp killed Karl Abu Deir and wounded 4 people, including a child who is in critical condition, according to Gaza activist Hamza al-Masri. Meanwhile, the Palestinian enclave's humanitarian situation continues to deteriorate, with aid inflows severely restricted by Israel. The director of Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital, the only government hospital in central Gaza, which serves 500,000 people, announced that operating rooms had ceased functioning after a 4th backup generator failed, with the dialysis, neonatal and intensive care units at risk of shutting down. 8 months into the ceasefire, reconstruction efforts by the Board of Peace appointed by U.S. President Donald Trump remain stalled. The Financial Times reported that none of the $17 billion pledged has reached the board's World Bank Fund, with the fraction of funds actually delivered routed to a private JP Morgan account outside UN oversight. Since the October 11 ceasefire, as of June 1, at least 932 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed, according to Gaza's Ministry of Health. At least 72,941 have been killed since October 7, 2023, with many other bodies still buried under the rubble. West Bank. Eid attacks and killings in the West Bank. The Eid holiday saw a surge of settler violence concentrated in the south and the villages around Ramallah and Nablus. The most serious attack came on May 30 in Nadarmer, south of Nablus, where dozens of settlers from a newly established illegal outpost shot and wounded 7 Palestinians. 3 brothers were hit by live fire, and a 72-year-old was shot in the foot. Settlers stole more than 100 sheep, according to separate reports from the Palestine Red Crescent Society, WAFR, and Israeli field monitor Jonathan Pollack. Israeli soldiers reportedly fired alongside them and blocked Red Crescent crews from reaching the wounded. Advertisement: On May 31, Israeli forces also killed 26-year-old Ahmad Ishtaye as he attempted to cross Israel's separation barrier near Aram in search of work.